With the Cobble Classics now behind us, the 2010 sprint campaign makes its way deep into the Belgian Ardennes. After a dominating performance where he became the 8th rider to take the Flanders-Roubaix double, Fabien Cancellara will give way to the top climbers in the world who are priming themselves for the Tour de France in July. Most notably, ready to test his legs is two-time Tour de France champion Alberto Contador, who has already been on the podium 6 times this year. The Spaniard is missing a classic from his resume, but his explosive attacking style is well suited for this terrain. Tour de France hopefuls will be licking their lips for a chance to flex their climbing muscles on the finishing climb up the leg-breaking Muir de Huy. The 74th edition of Flèche Wallonne is next on Versus. The view of the Ardennes as now all of the Spring Classic action goes down south in Belgium on the borders with Holland, as we now join in with the 74th edition of La Flèche Wallonne, the Walloon Arrow. I'm Phil Liggett, alongside me is Bob Roll, and welcome now to Epic Cycle Sundays, presented by Michelob Ultra. Yes, and the Tour de France stars of July are here, including Alberto Contador, who doesn't normally ride this event. He's trained for it as well. Bob, this is a most interesting concept, and it's not an easy course.
Most definitely not. As much climbing as a typical Tour de France stage from the mountains. Very few kilometers of flat roads, almost no place to recover, and that's why it takes a very special athlete to win this race.
And there's a slightly different course this year. The finish, I think, is much tougher because we finished on the 30-kilometer lap, which takes us onto that famous climb where the race will finish on the Muir de Huy. And that, Bob, is the whole point of this race, that brute of a climb.
A very tough climb to the finish. Pitches up to 22% just before the finish line. Here's the profile, like the shark tooth there, and you can see it's 123 miles, so it's very long, all climbing. You can see there's very few kilometers of flat roads. There's no place to recuperate, and that's why this is such a tough and beautiful race.
Well, a chance now for the men we might talk about as being Tour de France favourites to test their legs here, because these are the men of the stage races in a one-day classic and all together. Alberto Contador, two-time winner of the Tour de France, and hoping now he can prove also he can ride a one-day classic, because that's certainly missing on his palmarès. And like a lot of the riders, he's been out to view that finishing climb, which is unusual. Cadel Evans has been second in this race, Bob, and Valverde's won it.
Alejandro Valverde has won this before. He knows exactly how to get it done. Cadel Evans, wearing the rainbow stripes, is world champion. He comes with a lot of good form. And Andy Schleck, he is spectacular in the Ardennes. He was second in the Flèche last year and won Liège-Bastogne-Liège. You got to count him as one of the favorites.
All right, well, let's have a look before we go to the action. What happened earlier today? There was a breakaway, as always. But as always, while the breakaway was clear, there was this horrific-looking crash here. And watch the rider in the centre in Milram, because that was Dominic Rolls, wiping out a big portion of the peloton, Bob. Lying down there is Jaroslav Popovic of Radio Shack, Karsten Kroon and Christoph Brandt. And they were very, very slow at getting up.
Pretty devastating crash here right in the middle of the peloton. You can see the rider, we believe it to be Christoph Brandt. They're sliding across the road in front of the men just on his wheel, and there's absolutely nowhere to go. And when your front wheel is wiped out right from underneath you, you hit the deck hard.
Well, all of those riders struggled to return to the action here, but at least they were not seriously injured, although in fact Karsten Kroon did have a head injury. But watch this centre picture now as Dominic Rolls, I don't know what happened, but he lost complete control and wipes out on the barriers there. Down goes Karsten Kroon and also Popovic. So that was earlier today with 70 kilometres to go, and we'll now join the action. And the breakaway, by the way, of 5 riders got clear after only 44 kilometres. Palumbo, Loosely, Champion, Gourd and Auger. By the time we got to them at 38 kilometres to go, a couple had left the front. They've been joined by Jurgen van der Walle, Bram Tamkink and Edouard Vorganov, and they were only just in front of the peloton as we headed towards the Huy.
The Mur de Huy looming in the background there. Christophe Moreau also in that little breakaway there. And this is a pretty dangerous move. David Loosely, the Lamprey rider, tacked on to the back there. Didn't do a lot of work in the breakaway. That allowed him to carry on and get into the next break. But this is a very dangerous move. This is the head of the course, Tête de la course, 38 kilometers remaining.
Peloton closing in at 26 seconds here as riders now could sense the kill. The riders always said before this race started that the last circuit would prove decisive. It's a new circuit of 30 kilometres and there were very, very nervous riders now who were chasing down the break as they fragmented at the front of the field. Frank Schleck himself, Kreuziger, Loosely, Tamkink were all in the mix at the sharp end of the peloton with 37 kilometres to go.
Cees d'Epargne doing huge work on the front of the peloton along with Katusha. Of course, Cees d'Epargne has Alejandro Valverde. They believe he can win the race, and they control the peloton's tempo throughout the day's proceedings.
Looking down here as they go down one of the twisting, very dangerous descents here, but in beautiful spring-like conditions. The breakaway was still being stretched as new riders are now reaching the front of the attack.
Looks like Stéphane Auger there, tacked onto the back. He was in the early breakaway. A lot of riders, because it's so hilly and there's very few kilometers of flat roads, get across, attack, and when you attack in the hills, you can get an instant gap on the peloton. Also, Astana at the front doing a lot of tempo, and they're hoping for big things on today's stage from Alberto Contador.
Well, one or two riders reaching the front, not least Frank Schleck here. At the back there was Stéphane Auger, who'd been dropped from the breakaway but was brought back up to the leaders by a counter-attack through piece of riding by the veteran French rider on Cofidis. The peloton, though, were all being poised as now they're thinking, I reckon, of that final climb. Not too far away as they twist their way down through the lanes. Gaps holding at just on half a minute. 36 kilometres isn't very far to go, but with these guys they knew now they had to get over the top of the hill. At the back of the group, the champion of France, a Champion. This is Bram Tankink, who reached the group earlier on as they all try to keep this race, and Biel Kadri is there as well. As the breakaway now is dangling and very tempting. 30 seconds a lead with 36 kilometres to go. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Garmin Transitions' Jonathan Waters. The US Bicycling Hall of Fame is proud to announce the April 24th grand opening of the new museum in Davis, California. The Hall of Fame celebrates 128 legends of American cycling and is a great addition to any Northern California visit. Additional details available at usbhof.org. Well, as we're getting into the town of Huy here, Jonathan Waters is alongside us now. He is the Director Sportif of Garmin Transitions. Jonathan, this is a crucial moment, and the riders are very afraid of this last circuit, aren't they?
Yeah, you know, they changed the course a little bit from past years, so the run-in to Huy is more difficult than it's been, a little bit more selective.
Yeah.
And also the second time up Huy, the penultimate time of Mur de Huy, is it's a little bit closer to the finish than it's been in past years, so I actually expect there to be some pretty good fireworks this time up the climb.
Well, the work being done by Saxo Bank, Bob. We've still got a couple of the breakaways dangling just in front. Champion is still there, the champion of France, also Jurgen van der Walle, but they're all poised to strike now.
Well, only 30 kilometers plus to go in the bike race. 1K to the top of the Mur de Huy. Here's the breakaway. You can see the difference in the tempo. The peloton absolutely flying up the climb, and the men that have been in the breakaway, understandably, quite a bit slower on the pace here on the Mur de Huy.
The amazing thing is it's only 1.3 kilometres this climb, but it is an absolute brute. But this year, riders have trained on this course. What about your team, John? Did they train on it?
Yeah, we did recon 2 days before the event, and he was out there with Dan Martin, Ryder Hegedal, and Michel Crater, who is our new Dutch rising superstar. And anyway, they planned out that more than anything else, it's the entry into the climb that it is the climb. I mean, the climb, you've either got the legs or you don't, but the kilometers before the climb are the crucial time where you have to time when you move into position.
Well, you can see the breakaway is cracking big time here now. Biel Kadri of AG2R are all slowing down because the peloton are gradually grinding the way up this climb. Now, once over the top, it is just 30 kilometers left to race. The champion of Luxembourg is Andy Schleck, and this is what he's waiting for as he starts to go. Contador not far away either.
Contador queuing up there. You can see the danger when Andy Schleck pushes on the pedals on a steep climb. You know that it is absolute fireworks in the peloton. So this is going to be a very tough last lap of the Flèche Wallonne.
Well, there's Kadri being caught immediately by the champion of Luxembourg, and this is the big chance to fire. They really were afraid of this as they start to dig deep. Philippe Gilbert is in second place, I saw. Contador third. This is a real lineup now. Now, what about your boys, Jonathan? Where are they?
Well, Dan Martin was in about 20th spot there, and I think Ryder Hedgedal will be somewhere in there, although Ryder tends to ride at the very back until the last possible moment. There he is on the left-hand side of the screen.
And this is a very typical crowd here on the way to Huy, as Bram Tankink survives just about with Jurgen van der Walle. They reached the breakaway, remember, thought they were starting a good move, but now they're hanging on as this incredible tempo as the champion of Luxembourg is about to pass the champion of France, and Contador just sitting there. Now, on Friday, Contador said he trained on this course, Bob, and he was surprised just how tough this climb was.
Well, he's always wanted to add a classic to his palmares, to his resume, and he's hoping that this one will suit his talents the best. It does finish on the top of a very tough climb. He's almost unbeatable in those situations.
A little bit further down, we've got Brother Frank here, but this is a shrewd move by Andy Schleck. This is the first move, I think. Are we seeing a rerun of perhaps the mountains of the Tour de France? These are the guys who decided the podium just 12 months ago without Lance Armstrong, who, by the way, is back home at the moment, having contracted stomach problems. But Lance is probably well out of this just now, I think.
Yeah, also, interestingly, you can see that Cadel Evans is nowhere in the shot at this point in time, and it's a little bit interesting. At this point in the race, going over the top of the Huy the second time, either you're going to try to attack from a ways out and actually separate out the race before you go up the Huy the last time, or you're absolutely taking it easy and just soft pedaling it up this time because you are 100% sure that it's coming down to a sprint. As you can see, Cadel still hasn't come through as one of the race favorites. It's a little bit odd that he's that far back in the peloton.
Yeah, but interestingly, Bob, this field is not cracked up like we thought. The Schleck brothers are powering at the front, and I caught a sight there also of Chris Horner. Frank Schleck, double celebration, new baby born on the same day as his own birthday. Now, it'd be great if he won today, wouldn't it? That'd be the hat trick.
That would be fantastic. A triple stack for the family. You can see Chris Horner there very near to the front. He's having a great spring campaign. He won a big race recently, Pays Basque, and he's absolutely flying. So luck for Chris Horner to do something here on the last lap of Flèche Wallonne.
Yes, 1 year on from when he broke his collarbone in that very same race. So what a turnaround. Now, this is Frank Schleck looking around, seeing what the damage is like. Andy Schleck also dropping back. Now, we've got this 30-kilometer course, a couple of small climbs, including a Boisseau, and that is quite a steep one. And then they're going to come round to the town again for what will be a battle up the hill. Now, the fear was there would be a group getaway here, and clearly the Schleck brothers thought this would happen, but it hasn't happened. I think when we get a shot that we will see the bunches split, but there we are. That's quite a big group.
And it looked like being joined there by Roman Kreuziger was Frank Schleck, and very clever riding by Daniel Loosely on that last climb. He seemed to ease up a little bit from the breakaway, and he's been able to stay right there in the front group, so great riding from the Lamprey man.
Now, this is going to be a difficult race to judge here, Jonathan. Looking down from the helicopter, spot any orange-clad riders down there?
Well, again, you've got the race breaking up into pieces over the top of the Mur de Huy. This is the time where you're deciding, are you going to try to break the race apart now, or are you going to wait for the final sprint of the Mur de Huy? Obviously, Kreuziger and Frank Schleck have decided to go on a more aggressive tactic. The group's pretty split up behind, so the question is who's going to be able to chase this down, because right now there aren't so many domestiques or second-tier riders in that front group, so they're going to have to wait a little bit, wait for everyone to rejoin, and then we'll find out which team decides to start the chase.
This is quite a big gap here, and Lee Kugas have had a tremendous season already. They keep snicking into the results, and that's Roman Kreuziger who's got up there, and also Frank Schleck. They've got a couple of passions, I think. Bram Tankink, he must be short on legs right now, but Loosely looks as though he's firing. He's been in the breakaway since the 44th kilometre and has gone with this move.
And here's a brand new two-man out in the front. That's Kreuziger in the green and Frank Schleck in the white and black of Saxo Bank. This is a very dangerous move, especially when you have two of the best climbers in the business, Frank Schleck and Roman Kreuziger.
Well, this is Frank's card, and if it doesn't work, then he's going to rely heavily on brother Andy to finish off the day here. But Frank was the one that felt that the move could come on this penultimate climb of the Flèche de Huy. There's confirmation of those 4 riders. Tanking must be feeling a little bit tired, but you know, there's a big bunch just breathing over the shoulders. And now we are back with the Flèche Wallonne, and we're now in the hot seat because we're into this last 30-kilometre circuit, and really there's a couple of survivors up front for the breakaway, but now we've got a chase group coming up, and just look at this. Steady on, Jonathan Vaught's alongside me, but Ryder Hesjedal is in the move.
You know, Ryder Hesjedal had an incredible Amstel Gold with 2nd place. This course is a little bit less suited to him, so he's probably trying to get off the front before the Muur de Huy as opposed to sprinting it out on the Muur de Huy. However, you can see Jurgen van den Broek just sitting there, who's protecting Philippe Gilbert, who's behind.
Well, Gilbert, of course, has ridden well already by taking the Amstel Gold. You're quite right. Ryder here is on terrific form and looking like he's going to get even better. Totally fragmented the field at the moment. They have not recovered from the climb of the Huy, and that lead group is fragmenting and pulling away from the rest of the field. This breakaway's got a chance.
Breakaway, very powerful. They're a little bit further up the road from this chase group. That's Chris Froome from the Sky team. Sky's had a great year so far. Chris Froome trying to extend that a little bit, but you can see not a really concerted effort and not a coordinated chase. Riders come through, especially Ryder Hesjedal right there, and then they back off. That way, the breakaway, working together, has a good chance to stay away to the end.
But it really is a big group, this, but the chase is definitely on from behind, and I'm not surprised because in that group are the likes of Alberto Contador, Andy Schleck, Cadel Evans are all caught back there under the pressure. That looks like Van der Volle. They're dropping back to see what's going on. But I think that they're very, very concerned about this circuit, and they really believe the breakaway could get away on this smaller circuit because the climb that before we get to the Huy is quite a steep climb. Now, this is the breakaway, still reshuffling at the front. Hesjedal here chasing a lot of wheels.
Yeah, he's doing quite a bit of work, that's for sure. You know, it'd be better if we had someone like Dan Martin or Michel Crater, who are also our designated leaders for this day, to be up there with Ryder. But I think, like I said, Ryder his preference is to get into a smaller group than to have it be a group of 40 or 50 coming into the last time up Muur de Huy, which it typically is.
Well, looks like Rowenard is also trying to mix up here. Chris Froome, and there's a big move here now, and this is a move by Kolobnev, I think, who's now moved clear of the field. Now, this man, you know, he threatens this every time he rides a classic, Bob. He attacks near the end. He's leaving himself 25 kilometres to go. What do you think his name is? Cancellara?
Very good point, Phil. Kolobnev, a very strong one-day rider, a specialist for the classics, also 2nd in the World Championships a couple of years ago. So he's having a strong dig there for the Katusha team. They haven't had a lot of strong results so far this year. They're hoping to do something special today.
Well, he certainly caused a flooding behind because that race is far from giving up the chase here. Ryder Hesjedal still seems to be missing out on the wheels and doing an awful lot of work back there, Jonathan, and I don't see a lot of support for him just now.
Yeah, we need to get a few more guys up there, that's for sure. Kolobnev in Amstel Gold, he did the most incredible ride of the day. I mean, he came up snake eyes on it, but you know, with about 8-9K to go, he attacked and got caught just at the end. A super, super strong rider, so he's obviously trying to do the same thing today, although I think it's going to be fairly difficult for him to get across that gap up to Kreuziger.
It's a similar finish, I suppose, Bob, but I think that obviously the Muur de Huy is much steeper and much harder to come. So, will they bring him back? 24 kilometres to do it. Versus has teamed up with Map My Ride for the 2010 Le Tour Challenge to benefit the American Diabetes Association Tour de Cure program. The Le Tour Challenge is your opportunity to virtually ride alongside the top pros during 2010 Tour de France to win daily prizes, but more importantly for a cause. Sign up today at versus.com or mapmyride.com/TDF for more info. We're looking at the breakaway now, and third in that line of riders going through behind the two Astonas is Michael Albertini here. Interesting, Bob, you know, but since the HTC Columbia team started back in January 2009, over 120 wins to the credit of the Scott Addict frame, and it weighs just 1.75 pounds, and it's made by the carbon experts. But the work being done at the moment by Fofanov and by Iglinski of Astana.
I think I had a sandwich that weighed more than that frame did for lunch today.
You're probably right. It's amazing, isn't it, what they can do. Well, the race pressure is still very much on here, and the riders behind are not allowing a chance. 25 seconds alongside with Jonathan Waters, 21 kilometres to go. Has it got a chance, Jonathan?
Well, it's got some chance, but you know, if they hold it right there, you've got Kreuzger and Frank Schleck and 2 other strong riders in the front. If they hold it right there, they could make it just to the line. If the gap expands anymore, it gets a little worrisome. If it comes down, they'll certainly be sucked up on the Mur de Huy.
Well, 20 kilometres on the board there, but looking over the top of these riders, it's come back. This is not the main peloton. They left half of them behind on the climb of the Mur de Huy, but it is still a very, very big bunch, and it's bringing back people like Andy Schleck, Alberto Contador, Cadel Evans. These two wouldn't be riding like this at the front if Contador wasn't there, Bob.
Well, very obvious intention there from the Astana squad. They are drilling it at the front. There's the last 2 men standing apart from Alberto Contador. Andy Schleck there, queued up on 4th wheel, looking very strong, very attentive right at the front. He can just see over the shoulders of the 3 men in front of him, and perhaps see his brother Frank just up the road.
Now let's not forget that still up front is Kolobnev here. We're heading towards the Côte de Ref at the moment, which is a new climb on this finishing circuit, and there's still plenty of riders driving on at the front, mainly Astana. Further down the line now, Contador is in this group, and the stripes of the world champion just also, but a long way down for Cadel Evans at the moment. But it looks as though this finishing circuit has not proved as decisive as they thought, although they did give it their best shot. In other words, they've still got everything to race for with 18 kilometres to go. 5:8.72. Well, these are the 4 leaders now. Kolobnev has gone back into the pack, and we're getting on to the climb here of the Côte de Ref. This is 2.1 kilometres, Bob, and the peloton is only 20 seconds back.
Astana doing all of the work to chase these 4 men down. A little bit reminiscent of the way Frank Schleck won the Amstel Gold Race just a few years ago. That was a beautiful maneuver. He went in a small break and then left them behind and went on to win that classic. He's looking to add the Flèche Wallonne to his Palmares today.
Well, that is now a very big peloton. A lot of riders have finally come back from the climb of the Mur. It's Frank Schleck, Kreuzger, Loosely and Tankinger are heading up the climb, but this is going to be a point of attack now, Jonathan.
Well, I would think so, and the Astana riders that have been working on the front for so long, they've got to be a little bit tired right now. It'll be interesting to see if the attacks come out of this group. It kind of disrupts the rhythm a little bit, and that could potentially actually lead to the breakaway getting a little bit more time, or conversely, there could be guys that come out of the peloton with the attacks that make it up to the break and that it gets shut down on this hill.
Well, Fofanov and Iglinski here are dancing on those pedals, but if you take a look deeper into the pack, you will see Alberto Contador is also there. So he knows what his teammates are doing, and just coming up there now, I think he's about 3rd wheel, the white jersey of the world champion Cadel Evans, who actually rode the course and did a dress rehearsal a couple of days ago when his team manager Jean Along insisted he went out and seen the finish. He's never done that before.
Well, Cadel's been very close to winning this race. Just a little bit of luck, maybe not going the right way. There goes Sergei Ivanov, it looks like, from the Katusha squad. Stage winner in last year's Tour de France. Just getting up towards the front there and looking very dangerous in the champion of Russia's jersey there.
That was almost a tempter there to see who would come out and play, but the former winner of the Amstel Gold Race is looking very frisky at the front. Katusha have ridden very, very well today.
Katusha's actually been one of the strongest teams in all the classics. They were in a training camp in Tenerife for 2 or 3 weeks before the Ardennes Classics, and they've come in and all of their riders are incredibly strong, but since they haven't been doing too many races together, they don't seem to be able to put the tactics together.
Well, the Côte de Ref is not proving overly decisive here at the moment. Just Iglinski left on the front here right now for Astana. Katusha are lining up. And everybody else now, it looks to me as though they might be thinking, well, it's not going to be decisive. We'll wait till the climb.
Very last climb is the toughest part of the race course, and you can see the back of the peloton there, and a lot of riders getting shelled off the back. You can see a very tough tempo being set by Astana in the last few kilometers. A lot of riders having a tough time staying on. Looked like that was Matthias Frank there, the Swiss rider on the BMC squad, but you can see the damage now. Riders getting shelled right off the back, one right, left. That looked like Jens Voigt going backwards.
I think it was, but he has done a lot of work at the front, although we haven't seen him too much in our cameras, but he has been up there. It's only 19 seconds now to crossing the gap to these 4, and it's all down to the hard riding by Astana. on. I often think that when a lot of riders moved across to Radio Shack, they might have thought this team wouldn't have been a reckoning team, but it is. And now giving a go and trying to reach the leaders. This will be some firepower. If Sergei Ivanov, for the last couple of years, the champion of Russia, is trying to cross the gap on his own.
There goes Ivanov off the front. He's a very strong racer. You don't want to let him get too much daylight. You want to try to chase that as quickly as you can do. If you're a big contender hoping to win this, you have to really be careful with the tactics in the finale of Flèche Wallonne. If you time it poorly, you're not going to be able to win.
If you notice, the time gap actually isn't really coming down. It's just hovering 19-20 seconds. And the reason is because the four guys out in the breakaway, especially Kreuziger and Frank Schleck, are incredibly strong. So this gap isn't just going to come back by having the cannon fodder riders trying to pull it back.
Well, this is a very good move by Ivanov here. He is a very strong man, and they always show him the utmost respect when he makes a move like this, because he is a lone break expert when he does this. But he set himself a task here, 12 kilometres out, and I have to say that this last few kilometres, this race has been one of the best Flèche Wallonnes I've ever seen, Jonathan. They're not allowing anybody their head. Look at the peloton now.
Yeah, it's the race is a kind of a battle right now if you get to, between Saxo Bank and Astana. Astana's trying to keep it together for Contador, assuming that he can win up the Mur de Huy. Saxo Bank is trying to make the race a little bit more selective and break it apart, because I think Andy Schleck is maybe, Andy and Frank aren't as confident in their ability in a pure drag race up the Mur.
So Ivanov, the man who won the Russian title for a 6th time last year, as well as the Amstel Gold Race as well, has left his form a week later now. Well, not quite a week, because this is a midweek race, as he now tries to get up there. But there's a lot of people paying attention. And Ivanov still trying to ride them off. He's just getting on with his job as a professional and let the others worry about chasing. That's the top of the Côte d'Aref. And now as we make our way around this circuit, only 15 kilometres to go, 11 kilometres to go rather, 16 seconds the gap. These boys are not giving up, but have they got a chance? Now there's a question. Well, earlier today, it was the turn of the women to finish on top of the Mur de Huy, and it was a victory for Emma Pooley, leading in fact a 1-2 for the United Kingdom, as Emma came clear, stamping on those pedals for Cervelo, and she decided to try something just before the finish, and it worked out well for her.
Hail
She got the
Britannica,
result.
Phil.
Indeed. And Nicole Cook, who's won this race in the past and was second last year, second again. Emma Johansson of Sweden taking the 3rd place. Back to the men race. They've still got to get up there as we see an attack here. What's going on, Jonathan?
Again, Ryder Hesjedal trying to get away before the Mur de Huy. At Amstel Gold, he felt really confident about just sitting in and having that finish, because it's a little bit more of a gradual finish. The Mur de Huy for Ryder, I mean, Ryder's 6'2", 6'3", and a little bit heavier of a rider, so I think he's just a little bit worried about that 15% grade.
Meanwhile, last year's Amstel Gold Race winner, Sergei Ivanov, is still plugging away, and they're only sitting just behind him, but he's sticking to his guns.
Pedaling, getting a bit choppy there. He never quite got across to the foreman in the front. And when you see the peloton breathing down your neck, and now Ryder Hesjedal bridging up to Sergei Ivanov.
He's pushing a big gear too. Ryder has been this year just incredibly strong, and that's, his mountain biking background. He's always on the 5311, 5312. He's a strong guy.
Typical concrete pavement here now, with the Valley of Death, as Paul Sherman always refers, that black line down the centre where they don't quite meet the pavement and the wheels drop in. 10 kilometres to go. The great thing about this course, it does twist and turn, and this new finish, I think, has produced an extremely good Flèche Wallonne, that's for sure. And look who's come up here again. It's loosely on the back of this group, still hanging in, but it's only a few seconds. It's virtually a blanket now.
He'll probably be just sitting on the back, because his leader Damiano Cunego stated before this race that he'd really like to win, because he hasn't been producing very many good results this spring so far and has really been focusing on this. So I'm guessing that Lampre is going to focus 100% on Cunego's game today.
Well, 4 riders, and they can't possibly stay away, can they?
Well, they're going to stay away at least to the bottom of the Mur de Huy if the status quo remains the same. Not a very organized chase from the peloton. A lot of riders attacking individually, but these 4 men working quite well together, especially Frank Schleck and Roman Kreuziger. So the gap is just hovering there at 22 seconds. Now it's gone back up a little bit, and you can see individual riders attacking, but that's not the way to chase down a very powerful breakaway that contains riders of the caliber of Frank Schleck.
Well, they've got to try and chase this down right now before we start the twisted descent down to the valley, the banks of the River Meuse. riders, and then we head down towards the finish and up the hill. Andy Schleck is holding close order here. He's on third wheel at the moment. Hejjedal is still very much in evidence after that brilliant performance a few days ago in the Amstel Gold Race. Haven't seen any Cadel Evans, and haven't seen very much, in fact nothing, of Alejandro Valverde, but he is still in this group somewhere. Contador seems to be watching and waiting. They're gambling on the finish now. These boys are hanging on to 22 seconds, and they're still the same group: Schleck, Kreuziger, loosely, and Tanking.
Roman Kreuziger is one of my favorite riders. He's incredibly powerful. He's a great time cellist, great climber. I think he's sort of one of the guys who, after Contador's reign is over, could maybe challenge for the Tour de France. And I like the fact that he's out there taking a risk. You know, Roman's not going to be able to win a sprint up the Mur de Huy. He could maybe get 4th, 5th, 6th place. But by going in this move, he's showing that he'd rather risk it all and try to win in a move like this than just wait and finish a few places down.
Well, his great moment came when he did well and won the Tour of Romandy last year. That's coming up shortly, by the way, here on Versus. It's due to start soon after the end of the Spring Classics. 23 seconds the gap. And it looks as though Andy Schleck, Bobby's just trying to hold this group back because of Bro Frank up there. But if it goes wrong, he's ready to replace him.
Absolutely. Andy Schleck running a great race. Very attentive at the front of the peloton. Looks like Kolobnev having another dig there at the front. That's the Katusha rider. And Andy Schleck doing a great ride for his teammate and brother Frank Schleck. And he'll cover these little breakaways, but he won't cooperate in the chase. He'll sit on the wheels, and that will discourage anybody from coming across.
It's amazing how strong this Katusha team is, but I don't quite understand their tactics. They're not really chasing the breakdown. They're just sending guys off one by one. But again, they're not really reserving anyone for the sprint up the Mur de Huy except Rodriguez.
I think the most exciting thing about the Spring Classics this year is that big teams don't seem to be able to control the enthusiasm of a lot of riders, and there's no real organisation in that peloton. Everybody's trying to get to the front and hold their pace. 12 seconds the gap. 3 riders trying to get across here now, and this could make a big difference if they do bridge.
That's a they've taken 11 seconds out of the breakaway in like the last 200 yards or so, and that is Kolobnev on the front with the Euskaltel rider tucked in behind.
Yes, Vroenaar, and I think the Euskaltel rider has got to be Igor Anton for sure, trying to reach him now, because he will be able to finish them off on the climb. If those 3 do get across and strengthen 7, then Frank Schleck might yet have his day here.
Back of the peloton, you can see the damage being done by those accelerations. This is not the ideal place to be if you want to win this race, because you have to re-accelerate twice as hard out of every corner. You can see how narrow and twisty and technical these roads are. You need to stay near the front to have a chance to win.
Absolutely, and in that last shot you could actually see Kajstebarn finally moving up, so it looks like they were pulling Valverde up the right-hand side of the road, meaning that they've just played a very conservative tactic today, and they're going to be in the mix up the Mur de Huy.
Well, as Vroenaar sets the pace here to try and bridge the gap to these 4 riders, we have just a 10-second gap to those 2 chases. This is a real curly one, this, as they switch back on their own as they head down towards the valley now. 7 kilometers to go. We're going to say thanks a lot to Jonathan Walters, who'll be back with us for Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and let's see if rider Hejjedal can win today. We'll take a break. See you in a moment. Well, the breakaway is in somewhat, you could say, Bob, in disarray now, and there's been another fall out on the road as Euskaltel Euskadi rider seem to hit the centre of the barriers, but it's not disrupted the chase now. The field is coming together here, just on 5 kilometres to go, largely downhill till we start the climb up.
A little bit of a descent off the penultimate climb before the last ascension of the Mur de Huy. You can see the damage there. You can see the traffic furniture in the middle of the road. It looks like Ivan Velasco from the Euskaltel Euskadi rider. You can see his bike cut in half because of that crash. Here's another attack off the front.
Well, this is going to come thick and fast now. These are desperate moments here now as they try to strip away from the leading group in the hope they've forgotten as they start the climb. There's a reaction from Tankink. I really don't know where he's getting his strength from right now, Bram Tankink. Frank Schleck is now marking Kreuziger, and they're slowly bringing this group back together again. This is Kolobnev having a final dig, I think, in this group up here.
Looked like Damiano Cunego coming from the peloton across to the breakaway of Frank Schleck and Roman Kreuziger, going off the front as well in the pursuit here of this man in the front. Kolobnev having a fantastic day. That's his third wicked acceleration out of the peloton. Finally, they made the juncture to the breakaway. Now he's going ahead by himself, trying to get to the bottom of the Mur de Huy by himself.
Well, you've got to take your hat off to this man now as he really tries to steal the show. This is how the attack come. The breakaway in disarray. Who's going to take up the work? Nobody. He's taken his chance. Totally committed now as he makes the move. He's done it at 4 kilometers. Here he is now as we see they're trying to reorganize. But take a look in the distance there. You mentioned Damiano Cunego, Bob. I'd forgotten all about him.
The Piccolo Principe, the little prince there. A little bit of a regroupment now. Riders looking over their shoulder, hoping the other riders would come. That's understandable for the 4 men in the front. And here's the peloton being taken over. Kolobnev just off the front, and a pretty big group approaching the last ascension of the Mur de Huy.
Well, Igor Anton was supposed to win for Euskaltel-Euskadi. I think he's a spent man now because he's gone back in the group. This is the only survivor now of the breakaway. This peloton, you know, has never been together since the 44th kilometer, and Kolobnev now trying to reach the finish. Now, the hill itself has to be judged to absolute perfection because you get halfway up, you get round that corner, Bob, and you've ridden it, and it slaps you in the face.
It's like a wall. That's what the Mur means, a wall, and it looks like a wall right in front of you. There's Luis Leon Sanchez. Haven't seen Luis Leon Sanchez for a long time in the yellow shoes. Valverde right on his wheel. This is a very dangerous maneuver to the front.
They're trying to get themselves in first position to see the front of the climb. May not be a wise move, that. They need a few wheels in front of them, I think, as they make that turn up the climb of the Mur de Huy. A massive crowd as always. They've seen the race up there twice today, but this is for the big one. This is for the result at the top. They are absolutely flying. They're going to bring him back at around 1.5 kilometers to go. Who is going to attack? Contador, Evans, the Schleck brothers, Cunego, or Valverde? They're all there.
Luis Leon Sanchez announcing to the peloton, we're going to the front. Valverde on his wheel, a very audacious move by the Caves d'Epargne squad. But look, queued up on their wheel. They didn't get any daylight whatsoever. Philippe Gilbert is there. Cadel Evans is there. And it looks like the Radio Shack rider, Andreas Kloden, also near the front.
Well, this is a mass charge now as we head down past the River Meuse here into the town of Huy. Then we're on the climb, and it is going to be every man for himself. A desperate moment here by this Lamprey rider who tries to hit the hill first, but it doesn't matter who hits it first because he won't be first at the top, that's for sure. It is far too steep to make an effort from the bottom to the top, and it's going to all be together as they go on to the climb.
Just over 1 kilometer to go. That's Daniele Righe from the Lamprey squad, one of the Aqua Saponi men going up the front. That could be Alessandro Donati, but there's the whole peloton almost all together. A little bit of an acceleration there by the Aquaman, but he's going to come back directly. Euskaltel-Euskadi doing the big acceleration at the bottom of the climb.
Well, the man in red here is really quite ambitious. I think he's going to lead this lot up the next kilometre because it gets even harder now. We've turned right off the main road as we go onto the wall itself now. It looks as though Euskaltel-Euskadi is still trying to set this up perhaps for Igor Anton, and somebody has launched another attack, and it looks to me as though it might be Kloden.
Andreas Kloden there, the Radio Shack man. Radio Shack has had some great results recently with Chris Horner just winning Pays Basque a few days ago, and so they are absolutely on fire, perhaps a little bit too far out. This is a very tough climb, and there's a long way to go to the finish line.
Well, this is where the benefit of having trained on the climb counts now. Surely he can't imagine he's going to hold them off all the way to the top of this climb. Kloden, who's left his teammate Popovic lying in the road today, and as far as we know he's not going to finish. So is he setting this up for Chris Horner? Because Horner is still in this group right there.
Right there, Chris Horner hovering on the wheel of Alberto Contador. Igor Anton, the other rider from Euskaltel, he beat Contador in an uphill finish just a few days ago in a stage race in Spain, Castilla-León. But that's Igor Anton in the orange jersey leading the peloton.
And look who he's leading. He's leading Alberto Contador now. Are Spain going to get themselves a 1-2 here? Because this is a move. And Igor Anton, despite being in the breakaway, is now stamping on those pedals. This is the steep part of the course. It gets a little bit steeper. Contador is waiting there and hoping. Nibali is coming up into third wheel, and it looks as though Cadel Evans is just off the back. So too Andy Schleck.
And Rodriguez on the wheel of Cadel Evans. Igor Anton doing a great acceleration up this final climb. This is the steepest, most difficult part, and the lactic acid is just flooding into the legs right now. This should be a perfect opportunity for Contador to win his first classic.
Well, Igor Anton, this is a terrific piece of bike riding, but he's beginning to crack now. He's looking for help here, and Contador doesn't look terribly hot to me, but he's holding. He's looked over his shoulder. He's going to see Cadel Evans isn't too far behind, but has he left enough gap? Chris Horner going through. Contador having to hang on in here now, but Cadel Evans is still digging very, very deep. Contador is going away.
Contador's made his move now. Anton just barely able to cover that, but look at Cadel Evans, third place on the road now. He's got them in his sights, but now look at it. Contador's opening it up now. He's putting in his big bid to win this race.
Well, we've seen some big names climb up this hill and lead from the front. Valverde himself is one who's won on this climb on his own, but he's nowhere to be seen today. Contador is being challenged by Evans. I think Contador has totally misjudged the climb. When you look over your shoulder in second place, you're beaten, and the world champion, the first Australian ever to win Flèche Wallonne, gets it today. And by the way, the last world champion to win was Claude Coquillon in 1985. Cadel Evans has got the victory as a world champion.
Absolutely delightful result for the Australian, and I think he's been transformed by that world champion's jersey. The rainbow stripes, not a curse for Cadel, it's actually given him wings, and he's having a great year. Great ride by Evans.
And just completing the top 10 there, it looks as though Ryder Hesjedal, so Jonathan Voorts will be pleased. He's still holding his classic form here, backing that up with his second place in the Amstel Gold. Here is the star of the day. Cadel Evans, as world champion, has now won his first ever classic race. He's got to be delighted about that. Let's have a look at the results. Evans wins. Not a long day today, only 4 hours 39. Rodriguez coming up very late to snatch second, pushing Contador into third place there. The Amstel Gold winner Gilbert in sixth place. Chris Horner, another magnificent ride in seventh. And there we are, Ryder Hesjedal getting the top 10 complete. Cloden gets 24th, Frank Schleck in the end 42nd. Craig Lewis coming good for HTC, 121 for him. And Brett Bookwater there also finishing. So let's look at our road ID ride of the day. It was, of course, by the world champion Cadel Evans, who timed his finish to perfection and blew away Alberto Contador in the last 100 metres. And if you want to be a winner just like Cadel Evans, head on over to roadid.com/giveaway for a chance to win hefty prize packages valued at over $1,800. Right, Bob, well, let's have a look then. There's the man. It's always good if you win in the rainbow jersey, isn't it?
Most definitely. He's been the almost man for so long in his career. I started to doubt his talent, and I didn't think he could ever win the big races, but after winning the World Championships, he's a transformed man, and he is a consistent winner now. He's going to be very dangerous later in the summer in the Tour de France.
Well, his aim is to win the Giro d'Italia. He was testing his form, and so far, so good. I wonder what he'll do in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. I think it's Moreno Argentin, the last man to do the double in that competition. All right, let's see what he's got to say.
It's great to win in Flèche Wallonne, first of all, but of course racing with the rainbow jersey is an honour, and winning is even better, I think. It was the, I've been second here before. I think I've been fifth, I've been ninth, I've finished every position but first, so finally to win it is fantastic. Yesterday, Director Jean Lelang took us out for a course reconnaissance, and I looked at the climb I saw the climb in a different perspective, and I thought I'd always raced here with the wrong tactic, and I waited to ride until the last moment, and I had a good position right from the start, but waited right for the final, and then took them just in the last 100 metres, and that was the way to do it.
It most certainly was, and now he's up for Liège-Bastogne-Liège. And remember, the epic cycle continues on Saturday as Michelob Ultra presents Liège-Bastogne-Liège. At 2, Andy Schleck looks to defend his title, but he'll have to fight off Alberto Contador, Cadel Evans, and the world's best cyclists as they race the streets of Belgium. Saturday at 2 Eastern, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, the epic cycle only on Versus. Complete schedule too, log on to our website at versus.com, where you'll find bonus videos, Bob Key's beef, and plenty of great articles. And you'll also keep up with us on Twitter at VS Cycling. Well done to the world champion today, the first Australian, Cadel Evans, to win Flèche Wallonne. For the boys here, it's goodbye.